We are the variable. The Variable is more than a podcast. We're a creative community and movement spreading the belief that we all have the power to make an impact in each other's lives through positive connection, mentorship, and encouragement. Ready to make an impact? Join our online community. Share what you know on our show. Join our Q&A segments. Submit an article at thevariable.design and invite your fellow creatives to contribute. Let's be more than passive subscribers. It's time we decide to be the good in our community. We are the variable. The Variable is more than a podcast. We're a creative community and movement spreading the belief that we all have the power to make an impact in each other's lives through positive connection, mentorship, and encouragement. Ready to make an impact? Join our online community. Share what you know on our show. Join our Q&A segments. Submit an article at thevariable.design and invite your fellow creatives to contribute. Let's be more than passive subscribers. It's time we decide to be the good in our community. We are the variable. The Variable is more than a podcast. We're a creative community and movement spreading the belief that we all have the power to make an impact in each other's lives through positive connection, mentorship, and encouragement. Ready to make an impact? Join our online community. Share what you know on our show. Join our Q&A segments. Submit an article at thevariable.design and invite your fellow creatives to contribute. Let's be more than passive subscribers. It's time we decide to be the good in our community. We are the variable. The Variable is more than a podcast. We're a creative community and movement spreading the belief that we all have the power to make an impact in each other's lives through positive connection, mentorship, and encouragement. Ready to make an impact? Join our online community. Share what you know on our show. Join our Q&A segments. Submit an article at thevariable.design and invite your fellow creatives to contribute. Let's be more than passive subscribers. It's time we decide to be the good in our community. We are the variable. Hey guys, how's it going? You and I both know that when it comes down to creating a product, doesn't matter how fantastic you've designed it, doesn't matter how ergonomic, minimalistic, if you don't have any funding, you're not getting off the ground. All of you have thought about this at least once. I'll bet you I could just create my own product, advertise it on Kickstarter. I gotta just give you some advice before you pull the trigger. Kickstarter does seem like a really good solution for people who have teeny tiny shoestring budgets. Doesn't quite work like that. I'm gonna tell you why. When I ran a Kickstarter campaign with my product idea, I had a shoestring budget. Not that one, that one. And I thought it would be a great solution because A, I knew that I could come up with a good product. I knew how to present it well. And that's really what Kickstarter likes to give you hope and say that that's all it takes. Hate to break it to you. We barely funded. We like squeaked over the finish line. For all intents and purposes, we probably shouldn't have got fully funded. This is what I learned from that entire experience. When it comes down to getting funding for your Kickstarter, you're gonna earn every single backer, period. It makes you pause and think, is it really worth my time to be doing this, or should I just get funding in other ways? I'm gonna leave that up to you. The people that you look at and you see that their campaign just exploded and they did fantastic, had a massive following before they even started, which is a good indicator that they likely didn't even need a Kickstarter campaign. They just used the platform to push their product even further. So hey, if you've already got enough money and you've got a product that you're putting together, you're ready to pull the trigger, and you just want an extra push, go for it. The way that you do that is getting funded in the first minute that you hit go on your campaign. If people are waiting for it and you guys get fully funded super fast, that's how you get blown up and featured on their front page. Kickstarter's a business. They want to make money off of your sales. If a project is doing well and already has a lot of momentum, then they're going to push that out there in front of everybody so that it continues to succeed. Now, if you're an underdog and you had a weak start, is it possible that you can get fully funded? Yeah, maybe. It takes a lot to get it over the finish line. If I were doing it all over again, I would use the campaign not because I needed to, but because I wanted to. Knowledge is power. Just have a realistic expectation of what you can achieve, okay? If you have questions, you're more than welcome to hit me up. You can send me an email at russ@thevariable.design, or heck, just send me a text, 612-405-0726. Be happy to chat with you about it, answer any questions that you guys have. All right, without further ado, after this commercial break, stick around and we're gonna be introducing today's guest speaker for our Q&A. All right, welcome back, everybody. We're glad that you stuck with us. Without further ado, I'm excited to announce our guest speaker today, the one and only Michael DiTullo. Michael's been designing iconic products for some of the world's biggest brands for more than 20 years. He's worked with Nike, Google, Honda, Timex, Chantal, Converse, Motorola, and Salesforce. Prior to starting his eponymous design studio, Michael was Chief Design Officer for Sound United, parent company for Denon, Marantz, Polk, and Definitive Technology, where he oversaw industrial design, UX, packaging, product management, and marketing creative. He spent several years as creative director for Frog Design's San Francisco studio and nearly a decade at Nike, where he worked directly with Michael Jordan, Carmelo Anthony, Derek Jeter, and Dwayne Wade. DiTullo sat on the Ascensions Board to the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, the board of directors for the Design Foundation, and is a strategy advisor to Offsite, a disruptive take on design education. Michael's work has won numerous awards and has been printed in publications like Metropolis and Wallpaper. He's been featured in the books Dieter Rams, As Little Design as Possible, and Breaking In, and has published his own book, 365, 1 year of design sketching every day. And Michael is listed on over 30 patents and has won numerous awards, including the IDSA Special Lifetime Achievement Award for contributions to the design industry. An award won by design luminaries such as Jonathan Ive, Charles Eames, and Raymond Loewy. When Michael was 13 years old, he said, I want to draw stuff from the future for a living, and that is still the best description for what he does today. Michael, thanks for joining us on The Variable. We're glad to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, Russ. It's great to be here.
Yeah, we're ecstatic to have you join us on the show. This is great. Well, hey, just to kind of get things rolling.
Russ, I don't know if anybody else is having this, but I'm not getting your sound.
Really? My audio?
I'm getting your music, but not your sound, and your screen has a little bit of a green tint to it. Everybody else getting that same thing?
I don't think so. Is anybody else here in the chat?
It's technology.
Right? Well, especially when we're going live on something like this, something's bound to happen, correct? Yeah, let's see if anybody else is having an issue.
Still not getting any audio from you, Russ.
Well,
right now, the green tint is gone.
Hello, hello, hello.
I'm getting your background music. So you're totally getting your music.
Can you hear me now?
Not just getting
testing, 1 2 3.
Your voice.
Oh man, bummer.
I think this is about the time when the IT guy says,
right?
Have you tried turning it off and on again?
Right.
Everything seems fine for Andreas. Okay, this is just me then.
Here, 1 second. Let's retry this. Can you guys, how about now? Are you hearing me at all?
Right now.
Not now?
Oh, no, now I hear you.
Now you do. Ah, thank you guys for your patience. Of course, after all of that wonderful intro, everything was working great. Of course, the mic would be giving us trouble. Appreciate your patience. Well, hey, Michael, thank you so much for joining me on The Variable today and everybody else who's tuning in. To start things off, hopefully on a better foot now. I wanted you, Michael, to tell us about, okay, we've got a bunch of designers who are tuning in, but, some people may or may not be designers on the show. You run into somebody at a cocktail party and they ask you the question, what do industrial designers do? What's your answer to that question?
That's a great question, Russ. I think my cocktail party answer is a little bit different than my answer for myself, and I'll give you both answers.
Good.
Usually if I'm at a cocktail party and I'm introduced to someone who doesn't know anything about industrial design, they ask me what I do, I say I'm an industrial designer, right, and I see that blank look in their face. I'll usually say, well, hey, do you know what an architect does? Yeah, the architect designs houses. You know what a fashion designer does? Yeah, that fashion designer designs apparel. I was like, well, I do everything else. So I try to just kind of triangulate in, because I think it could be tempting to speak in designer speak, right, to them, to say like, oh, I use complex methodologies to solve problems. It's like, well, they still don't know what to do, right? But they probably know what an architect does. They probably know what an apparel designer does. And now you've just said basically everything else in the world, they're working on that. My answer for myself is a little bit different. Right. And while we do solve problems, while we do so many different things, I feel like in essence our job is to make the artifacts of the future. Right, 100 years from now, 200 years from now, 500 years from now, somebody will be looking at all these objects that we as industrial designers created and trying to infer what was important to people of our time, right? To make all these kind of cultural implications and inferences from these artifacts, which are the products that we use every day. And so I try to keep that in mind whenever we're working on something.
Okay. Oh, well, that's good. Good. I asked you that. I mean, I'm going to tip my card to you. I was driving at something here when I started off with that question, because we had a conversation prior to this, and you mentioned that, that you create content purposefully with the intent of communicating, or to make a real representation of what industrial design is and what we do. So as you're creating that content, what's the thought process that's going through your mind? It's like, what are you trying to tell the world? And maybe and likely you're doing that because somehow we're not getting something right and you're trying to make a correction here. So kind of walk me through that thinking.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I try to, on social media, whether it's in a podcast like this or on Instagram or what have you, I try to demystify the process and be honest about it, and show if a rough sketch or a dirty prototype leads to a final product, that's what leads to it. Like not every moment in the process to making something that is wonderful is beautiful. Like sometimes that moment is just what you need to do in that moment. And I feel like there's been this overemphasis in social media on making these beautiful representations of somewhat fictional processes. And you know, whether that's like the perfect problem statement with the beautiful chart, or the just hyper hot sketch, or the ultra real rendering. A lot of times those things don't happen during the process. A lot of times those things happen after the project is done. You know, you might be driving towards a problem statement or putting together some research, but you're doing just enough to get you to the next step. And you might be doing some sketching and ideating, but again, just enough to get you to the next step. And of course, you're probably building some prototypes or building out some CAD models, and you're running off some quick renders for stakeholders so they could see what the final thing will look like. But you're probably not going to let your machine crunch on it for 40 hours to get one photo real render when you can maybe not even get approved. And I'm guilty of this as well, because it's, you know, I love looking at those things. I love showing them, but I've been trying to recenter us on the core goal of an industrial designer, which is to make products that people will enjoy real. And if it doesn't ship, did you design anything? You know, it's like if a tree falls in the woods and, you know, no one's around to hear it, does it make a sound? And I think it's like, if it didn't result in a product that somebody uses and gets utility from, improves their life in some way, brings them some joy, well, did we really design anything? And so that was the impetus behind starting my Real Designer Trip Instagram account, where the only thing we do is celebrate design that ships.
That's actually out there and that's real. Well, I think that's great, because you point on a few things that perhaps are some misconceptions that people have about us, and it's likely our fault. You know, as we put out these kind of high end, super sexy looking renderings all the time, it might give people the impression that that's what we do. We just make nice, pretty renderings, which isn't, like you said, is that going to stop us from doing it? But I think that you're right on point there when we're talking about focusing on what really counts. What really counts is getting it out there on the market, and you can have 1,000 beautiful renderings, but none of them equal or add up to one actually manufactured, shipped product in the market. Well, that's great.
The lines are, and Russ, the lines are blurring so much. Like I'll post a photo of a product and someone will say, wow, that's a beautiful rendering. I'm like, well, that's a photograph. That's a real thing. And so we're losing this connection or the ability to see. And that could be dangerous for a young designer, because, you know, we don't sell sketches. We don't sell renderings. You know, we sell ideas that could be developed into products. And I think that's key.
Well, and those are some misconceptions. So one of my questions that I wrote down here is, what are some of the misconceptions that we have about our profession? Those who are getting early on in it can kind of get this impression that to be success is measured by hot renderings on your Instagram page, when in truth, that's not a mile marker. You know, I mean, are there some other things, like what would you say are some of the the misconceptions that we could try and address and do better about in our profession?
Well, one of my mentors, Paul Bradley, who passed away a few years ago, he was executive
No.
creative director at Frog. He used to say this thing. He'd always say there are no innovative ideas, there are only innovative products. And I think it's
Oh,
along the same lines of like, if you can, if you come up with this amazing breakthrough idea, but you can't convince someone to get it made, well, then we didn't really do our job. And I think that a core misconception for young designers is this focus on skills, which skills are important. I'm not downplaying
yeah.
skills. Skills are important, but
Yes.
you can have the hottest portfolio, and if you can't collaborate, if you can't work with people, if you can't sell an idea, and I don't mean sell in a dirty way. I mean sell in a like
Sure.
convince someone, influence is maybe a better word.
Yeah.
You just won't go far. And I remember when I was in school, every school has, you know, those few students that are just like leagues above everyone else.
Yeah. Just
There was
killing it.
this one student, and I remember I was looking at his work, and it's so good. And I was so frustrated with my own work that I literally like started tearing up a little bit. So I was just like, I'll just never be that good. And one of my professors saw me looking at the work, and he was like, "Hey, his name is Cliff, Cliff Crapple, who's VP of design over at Teams Design now in Chicago." And Cliff was like, "Mike, are you okay?" And I was just like, you know, I'm never gonna be that good. And Cliff was like, you know what, Mike? Like, yeah, he's really good. He's amazing. But I guarantee you'll be a director before he is. And,
Yeah.
and I was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, you'll get it someday. and
Yeah.
I think what he meant is that like, yeah, this person had these amazing skills, but they're so over indexed in the skills. They didn't have maybe some of the other soft skills, which is, you know, listening, uh, taking research and putting it into insights, taking those insights and putting it into an innovative design, and then influencing people to make that design. While I couldn't sketch or build a model as well as that other designer who is a great designer. I won't say him by
Yeah.
name,
No, we're not knocking him, but
but yeah, I was a director faster, so Cliff was right.
he was right. He was right. Well, and that goes to show that, like, I think that's like a good takeaway right there, because I mean, it's easy to compare and to feel like you're falling short behind the pack, and you're not going to see the success as quickly as you'd like to. And really, what boils down to it is there's so many factors that go into it. So for you to be early on in your career, looking at some other student, comparing work, and then somehow making deductions on what your future is going to be like in the industry, that's not accurate. That's not how it's going to pan out. As long as you stick with it, and if you're struggling right now, just know that everybody hits that at some point. If they're high on the hog and they're doing great now, just give it time. They'll bottom out at some point, and they'll have a rough time. Well, I do want to ask you a few questions on life lessons. That's this segment that we're moving on to here. So, you kind of hit a little bit on this, but I want you to dig a little deeper. One of the questions I wrote down here is, what were some of the things that you used to do earlier on in your career that now make you shake your head? And just like, oh, anything?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Okay.
Anything.
Good.
You know, I think that one of my when I was early in my career, I was working at a consulting firm called Evo, and I remember when I would present work to clients, I would just like, lay the work out, and my boss would be like, "You can't, Michael. You got to present the work." And I was just like, "But the work speaks for itself." He's like, "No, it doesn't. Like you'd like to think that, but while this might be the most important thing in your life right now, to our client, this might be one of 10, 20 things they have going on." And so I've learned to, you know, never assume that what I'm working on is important to who I'm presenting, even though they may be paying for it. And so you know, really always make sure that I restate what the problem is we're trying to solve, what the goals are for the project, what were the decisions we made in the last meeting, and why it is we're looking at what we're looking at today, and what decision I need from them before they ever see anything. And
Sure.
yeah, I mean, if I'm sure if I sat across from me back then,
Yeah.
25-year-old me presenting, I would have been like, what are you even talking? You're not
Well,
talking relevant
dude.
to me.
Well, I think that's just good for people to understand too, is like everybody's got those moments where they look back on it. Like if I pulled out my portfolio from like starting off in school and showed off some of my sketches, like, oh, graphically the things that I thought like just was straight out of like 1991 or something like that, with gradients, and it was just bad. And it took people taking me under their wing and saying like, hey, Russ, don't do that. It'll be better if you don't do that, and if you focus on doing this instead, which is what sparked the whole message of the variable, is that there's moments in all of our lives where we're given those learning opportunities, those nuggets of truth, those variables from people, and that we're trying to get as many of those from experts such as yourself, from your stories, to share with our audience. So I like to, generally people will have like, hey, can you tell us your story? How did you get into industrial design? And I kind of shy away from going straight into that, because let's be honest, Michael, you've been on a lot of these podcasts, a lot of them. So when you accepted my invitation, I was very excited to have you on. So of course we want you to share major milestones and moments in your life that helped learn, but with the scope, through the scope of like giving us advice from major takeaways, because there's other episodes and other podcasts people can listen to get the actual details of every single event leading up to your claim to fame. But if you were going to like pick out the major moments and say, when I was here, I struggled with this, and I got over it, and I learned this, and then this and that. Like, give us your master's class on what it took to get where you're at today, right here.
Well, I think the biggest, looking back on my life, the biggest moment where things could have really gone sideways was when I was back in school, when I was 19 years old. I just, I wasn't a great student for a reason, and that reason was, my sophomore year, which is the first year in industrial design. We had 4 instructors. 2 had just graduated the grad program. The third was an architect, and the 4th was a graphic designer. And I was just very disappointed that I felt like there wasn't anyone who, in my opinion, as a 19-year-old, which take or leave, who knew enough about industrial design to be earning all the tuition I was paying. And I think that was a valid criticism. I think I didn't handle it like an adult. I handled it like a 19-year-old and stopped going to class. And I would come to class basically on critique days and basically show a different, I would still be working really hard. I just didn't listen to my instructors, and I would show basically a totally different project than they assigned, just based on my own reading about what industrial design was. And so, I was basically a punk kid, and in response, they gave me 2 Ds and like a C- and a C, and which was enough to get me on academic probation. And then they had a meeting with me and asked me to leave the school. They told me I didn't have what it takes. I would never make it. And,
wow.
I should drop out basically. And I mean, I was 19 years old. I'll never forget, it was on Valentine's Day. That night I had a date with a girl, first date with a girl who would become my wife, and still my wife now.
Oh, that's great.
It was a very big day, both personally and professionally. And I ended up in a 2-hour yelling match with the head of the department. And because I just was not going to, I knew I felt that I was right, that they didn't, were not employing instructors that should be
Yeah.
teaching industrial design. And there was, I'll never forget this visiting professor from Domus Academy in Milan, this guy named Giovanni. I wish I remember his last name. And the head of the department says, Giovanni, tell Michael what you think of him. And Giovanni says, Bob, you don't want me to say what I think of Michael. He's like, no, tell him, he deserves, let him have it. So
Let him
Giovanni
have it.
turned to me and he said, Michael, I think you're the best student in the school. These people don't know how to teach you and it scares them.
Oh, okay.
So
How'd that go over?
he gave me the confidence to kind of stick to my
Okay.
guns. I met with the head of the department the next term, and we basically set up like 2 years of independent study. I did a summer program at Domus in Milan. I did an exchange semester with Cleveland Institute of Art. And then I did an independent study for Nike and an independent study for Nissan. And so
Yeah.
it really taught me, what it taught, the point of the story is it taught me to decide for myself what I needed, that no one was going to hand me my education on a silver platter and say, here
Yeah.
you go, here's everything you need. That I was
Yeah.
going to have to determine what it was I needed, and I was going to have to go get it. And professionally, the same thing. I think that for me, I think my most important asset every day is just knowing who I am,
Yeah.
knowing what my goals are, what my definition of myself is, and controlling that. And sure, I may be working for different companies, and our goals might align for years. I have clients that I've worked with for years, and there may come a time
Sure.
when those goals diverge, and to see that moment and to professionally move along.
Yeah. Wow. Good life story. I mean, inspiring for all of us. It's like, I mean, when you take a look at somebody and you see how things turn out, it's easy to draw deductions on how things worked to get all up to that point. You don't see the struggle and the sacrifice that went behind it. And so, I mean, thanks for sharing that with us. I think that's a good one. Okay.
So and I'm not gonna lie, it was not easy. I mean, I was 19 years old. I was crying.
Yeah, and I'm sure it was tough.
Yeah. A few years,
Yeah.
I ended up becoming pretty close with the head of the department. And he, right before I graduated, he had me over for dinner. And, I had never brought up that Valentine's Day meeting 3 years prior. Yeah. And I was like, I'm going to bring it up. I've worked so hard. I ended up graduating with the faculty award, whatever that means. I
Sure.
brought it up. And, it just brought up all the emotion again. And I started crying again. I'm a crier. I started crying again. And Bob was to me, he's like, Michael, I don't even remember that. It was this pivotal moment in my life. It's like, it was just
doesn't even remember. Doesn't even remember. You're like, gee, thanks. Wow. Well, fast forward, here you are, running your own firm, very well-known designer. I thought it would be interesting if I were to call this segment, if I titled it, I would call it From Your Own Mouth. You are very active online and you've got lots of cool stuff that you talk about. And so this is one of the things that I thought was interesting that I'd like to give you a shot to expound on. So you say rapid visualization, otherwise known as sketching, is one of the most effective and efficient communication tools in a designer's toolbox. It is always important to remember that a great sketch isn't the goal. The goal is a great idea that can be refined into a successful and useful product. So that being said, my follow-up to that, I just want you to riff on is this a message of hope for those who feel like their sketch quality is a bit weak compared to what they're seeing online?
That's a good question. I think, for me, I think of, design as a team sport. It's
Sure.
very collaborative. Even if you're the only designer on a project, you're probably going to be working with engineers or with product managers. And so for me, it's about building an idea. I don't feel like the owner of an idea. I feel like the facilitator of an idea. So
Right.
I feel like I want to get ideas out as quickly as possible, as raw as possible, so that then I can have a conversation with you, with a team member, with a client, and we can beat that idea up a little bit, build on it, combine ideas quickly, and so for me, it's about keeping in when you're working in the realm of ideas early in a project, keeping it at a stage
Hmm.
where it doesn't feel too precious. You haven't invested so much
Sure.
time into like making this beautiful illustration of the idea. And it's the difference between sketching and drawing. You don't want to draw the
Yeah.
idea, you just want to sketch it, you want to communicate it. And then to me, it's nothing. If somebody took out a black Sharpie and drew over one of my sketches, it means
It
nothing
wouldn't
to
make
me.
you mad. You wouldn't be mad, slash their tires in the parking lot. Yeah.
Drawing,
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I feel like, to me, that's what it's about. And that's not to say like you should not work on sketching, right? It's not to say that you
Sure.
shouldn't, because my goal anyway, is to be able to communicate anything that I need to communicate quickly. And so that
Right.
to me is the goal of getting better at sketching. The goal of getting better at sketching isn't impressing people with your perspective,
Right.
like
Ooh. Yeah.
that's not the goal. So back to your original question, yeah, like your sketch doesn't have to be this like whatever, pick a designer, a Scott Robertson, like amazing sketcher. Um, your sketches don't have to be at that level. They do have to be at the level where you can quickly and effectively communicate and maybe persuade a little bit, right? You want to
Sure.
present the idea in its best light, because while to me the only thing worse than a bad idea sketched really well, which kills me, is a
Yeah.
great idea sketched so poorly that nobody else gets
That
it
nobody
and gets
gets
it,
it.
right? And so that idea
Yeah.
goes away and never gets its time in the sun.
Well, and I think you touch on something right there when you're talking about a bad idea sketched really well. The quality of sketch does not dictate the validity of an idea or how good it is, and so finding that balance, like you're right. I don't think it should be our ambition to do the bare minimum just to communicate it well. It needs to be like, we're trying to put our best foot forward and instill confidence in our clients. So yeah, I've worked for some people before in the past who like just scratch something on paper and we'll show it to them and see if they like the direction. And I understand where that mentality is, but at the same time I do see value in saying, okay, dedicate some time to put a little spit and polish on it so that it puts us in the best light and communicates the thing well. So yes, don't beat yourself up if you aren't as great as everybody else, but strive to do better if I'm understanding you, with the goal of being a better communicator, not for the laud and fame of sketching well. Okay,
Right.
Great. I do have another one straight from LinkedIn that you posted. The more I build physical and digital models, the better I got at sketching efficiently and describing three-dimensional space versus putting lines on a page. It is all connected. So when I read that, my first thought was like, I don't generally think of creating physical digital models as being directly correlated with quality of sketch work. Like if somebody's saying, hey, what do I need to do to get better at sketching? I don't say, go break out a piece of foam and carve away, or go make a 3D CAD model. But I mean, I'm not disagreeing. It makes perfect sense in my mind why it would be helpful, but it's almost funny. We don't talk about that as our part of our wheelhouse of building skill. Like go and grab a hunk of foam and work on it, and then that'll help you with sketching. Like, are there some other unconventional ways that we can help improve our sketch work and our design work, do you have other activity, meditation, camping? Like, what do you do, Michael, though, what's your secret sauce that you need to tell us?
Well, I think the the genesis of that statement came from early in my career when I was a young junior designer. The firm I was working for didn't have any model makers. They had this amazing shop facility, but there wasn't a dedicated model maker. So oftentimes the junior designers would have to make the senior designers models. And what happened to me during that phase, a senior designer would give me a sketch and be like, I'd go make a model from it. And, then the senior designer would be like, no, that line doesn't mean this, it means that. And, so I got better at interpreting their sketches into three-dimensional forms. And as I was making these models, I realized I started to just get a lot better and more efficient at sketching because I was understanding the three-dimensionality to what I was doing and not just, I think when you're young, you could just be trying to put some lines on the page and think you're describing something three-dimensionally, but not really having a full sense of what that object is like if you spin it around. And the same with developing CAD models. It's not exactly the same because there's nothing better than touching it and feeling it and spinning something with your hand. But similarly to building a CAD model, if you go into it with that kind of a mindset of like understanding, you have the ability to change the focal length and change the perspective and do all these different things. And if you go into it like studying, like, oh, when I do this, this is what happens, you will get better at sketching just naturally. And so I think that it's just kind of having a mindset. And for me, I think 90% of sketching is seeing. It's just studying the world around you and looking at how things look and feel and how what makes something feel natural or compelling and what makes it feel kind of unnatural, right? Proportion, perspective, detail. And so the more you look and the more you study, and making models is a part of that to me, the better you'll get.
The better you're going to get. Great advice from Michael DiTullo. So I have some more stuff. You're talking some exciting things that you're working on. I mean, you've already got your 9 to 5, you've got clients, you've got everything that you're doing. But on top of all of that, you said that you're going to be teaching the business and design again as part of the summer cohort for offsite. So in this thing that you posted, you talk about all the different stuff that you guys are going to be covering, the business context of design activities, blah, 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 blah. But one thing that popped out of the page as I was reading this it says how businesses measure success. And in parentheses, you said it's not in design awards. You were onto something and you had a reason for why you did that. Preach. Tell me what was going on in your mind when you put that in parentheses. It's not in design awards.
Well, so as you can know from my previous story, I think design education is something that's always been important to me because I feel like there was a disconnect in my own life. And I've taught at the college level several times for different schools, and I love teaching. I love passing on what I've learned. But I've never felt like academia was really the right place for me. So I've always kind of fantasized about starting my own program, like a Frank Lloyd Wright Taliesin or the Bauhaus. And so I've talked about it with friends like Spencer Nugent and Hector Silva over the years. And so when the pandemic hit, Hector, called me and was like, hey, this is the time. I'm going to make this happen. And so this will be our third cohort of this 12-week class. There's 6 other instructors and myself, so 7 this time around, all professionals. The course I teach is business and design. And the reason why I wanted to teach that course is because school barely touches on it. And everything we do as designers is in the context of business in some way, shape, or form, right? That's the whole point. Like, we're making a product that takes probably a tremendous amount of investment to research, to develop, to tool up, and manufacture. and then distribute and sell. And so all of that cost has to get recouped by selling the product and it being successful. And a design award doesn't help to do any of that. Like,
No.
so that's not the way a business measures our success. And if you don't understand how, either if you're working corporate, if you don't understand how your company measures success, or if as a consultant, if you don't understand how your clients measure success, how can you deliver a good solution for them? I mean, sure, I guess you could accidentally do it, but I prefer not to do that, especially when people are paying me a lot of money. So, for me, I will always ask clients, like, what is the success of this project? Like, how much revenue does it have to do, and in how many months? What are we getting at, so that I can understand, what they're measuring me by. And sometimes, so I will frequently, like when we kick off projects, I'll frequently start the project by helping them write the press release for the project. So that we really understand, like, on launch day, if everything went right, what would your dream publication write about us?
Right.
And so really kind of like putting the goals in focus before we start anything.
Yeah. Oh, that's smart. Well, and that's how that's good advice for anything and everything. If we're trying to build a portfolio, if we're trying to showcase a project, if we're trying to do anything, stopping and saying, probably from the very beginning, write a statement of what you're hoping people will say about this project before when all is said and done, and then ask yourself when you do get done, that's your measuring stick right there. How well did we do? That's a good way. That's how if you've been successful, if you've touched on all of these points and you've made it happen.
It's nice. It's nice to get design awards. It's nice to be recognized by our peers. And it's just no. I mean, I love to get design awards. It's just knowing that's probably not what my client cares about, and it's probably not going to help get me more business because my client doesn't care about it. So it's gravy. It's a nice thing, but it's not the thing that I judge myself by.
Yeah, we just got a comment in YouTube here is talking about John Small said a course on the business of design would be great. So yeah, we've got some more people backing you up on seeing the value of understanding how design is integral to business and the big picture. Right? I think that's kind of my takeaway from everything you said there is like being good at seeing the big picture. What really makes a difference? What really makes a difference? Is it the design award that's going to help it sell? Because quite frankly, when you go to Walmart and you see a product on the shelf, it doesn't have 3 IDSA awards underneath it or something like that.
Right.
In truth, the consumer doesn't care. They want it to work well. And if it doesn't work well, then anyhow.
In that course, the first module that I focus on is all on org charts. And how an org chart can totally determine the types of design solutions that will get approved. And that's something like we don't learn anything about this. Like, who else is in a corporate structure? What do they do? And how is it that they can help us do what we do, or they can stop us from doing what we do? And so, I try to help designers understand, like, these are all the different types of people you're going to be working with, what they're responsible for, what they care about. How do you solve problems, not just for the end user, but for them, so that your idea moves forward? So try to help designers understand how businesses measure success, what the shape of an organization is like, and how that determines the outputs, how to schedule things, how to estimate, how to set hourly rates, all these things that like no one wants to talk about in school.
Yeah. Well, if somebody, I know we've got limited time, so you're not able to dive deep into all of those things. But I know in the Exploded View podcast, you were featured on it. You go very specifically into pricing projects and how that works, fixed bid versus hourly rates, what the pros and cons are, and so on and so forth. So we're not competitors here. We love our other podcast hosts, and we want to, if you've got good stuff over there, people should should go check out that one for more details on it. But before we wrap up and we head over to our Q&A segment, there was one cool thing that you did that I thought was unique that you posted on Twitter. You said, sometimes a thought on a Saturday morning can turn into a fun little weekend project. And here you've got just some little images, little thumbnails of the project that you put together. And you captioned the post, not every project is a perfect case study in design process. Oh, that was for the boom swimmer. So I like your boom swimmer because you shared that story as well, how that was just thrown together quickly. And obviously, I'll let you briefly tell the story. I don't want to steal your thunder, but it was unconventional. And you did something just for fun over the weekend. Tell us what some of the value of having some of those mad dashes can be in your design process, as opposed to always having to go through the very systematic design thinking, start with this, this, and this. Sometimes you got to go fast. But so fill us in the boom swimmer and tell us about this other little thing you did over the weekend and posted about.
Yeah, that little weekend project was just a scent vaporizer, and
yeah, it was just a vaporizer.
Sometimes you just have a thought, and I woke up on Saturday morning with this little idea for a form, basically, and I just jotted it down on a Post-it that was on I always keep a little on my nightstand, and then I just went and walked the dog and was thinking about it, and I was like, I'm gonna come back and let me just sketch on it a little bit more, and I did a few pages of sketches, and then I was like, let me build a CAD model really quick, and you start rendering it, and so to me it's just like, one, what we do is fun, so you can give yourself permission to have fun with it, and two, not everything is this like very protracted process.
Sure.
Your whole career in a way is a project, and there's so many things you've researched, there's so many things you've worked on. I can't tell you how many times I've been to factories. I've probably been to China 30 plus times and just seeing tooling get cut, seeing, your whole career benefits from all these experiences. And so sometimes what feels like intuition or inspiration is just the cumulative effect of 20 years of work coming together and all the gears kind of meshing. And then you're like, oh, I got it. And it seems like magic. It seems like there wasn't a process, but there was. It was so long you couldn't even see it.
Yeah. Well, and it's like people will say, check your preconceived notions at the door when you're doing a design process. Well, you are an accumulation of all of your years of experience. So to just blatantly throw that over your shoulder and not expect it to impact what your output is, and clearly in a moment of need. So you did that for fun. That's what I think is funny. After a long week of doing design work, how do you unwind? With some more design work just for fun of your own product. You did that for fun. And then the boom swimmer was like an 11th hour Hail Mary save that you did too.
Yeah, that was, the CEO of the company came to me and was like, if you're in any kind of consumer product category, the company you're working for might be able to get something called NPD data, NPD, which is the output of basically it's all the data from transactional data from registers. And so the CEO is analyzing NPD data in the Bluetooth speaker market, and he noticed this huge uptick in these kind of small 3-inch by 3-inch,
just little ones,
Bluetooth speakers. And he's like, we don't have anything at that price point, at that size. We got to make one. And I was like, well, there's like 100 of these things in the market, and we can't just make another one because it will do poorly. There'd be no differentiation. And I was literally the day before I was going on vacation. I was like, let me think about it, and let me get back to you after vacation.
Let me just think about it. And you come back with this product. Go ahead.
And just on vacation, I was doing. I was living in San Diego at the time. We were flying. We were spending some time in New England for the fall, seeing a bunch of old friends and family. So we were driving around to all these different places and staying in different Airbnbs. And so I don't know, I had the idea for this opposable tail that you could wrap around something like
Yeah.
handlebars, a shower head. And, I brought it, I came back, I talked to one of my designers about it. I was like, hey, what if we did, we had this
Yes.
like hand-shaped thing and then added this tail. Jeremy Savage was the lead designer on it. He did like 3 sketches. One said swimmer next to it. And I was like, that's it. I showed it to the
Ta-da!
CEO. I showed it to the CEO and he's like, really, that's it? We're going to call it the swimmer? I'm like, yeah, that's it. And like
Boom.
8 months later, it was, on the shelf.
On the
That thing
market.
was sold at Target. It was sold at the MoMA store. It was sold everywhere. And I think it just added this very kind of visible innovation. Like you just kind of got
Sure.
it. You're like, I got it. It's a speaker with a tail on it.
Yeah, it just speaks for itself. I think it's
Yeah.
funny, kind of like you're talking about that blatantly. This just came together. We did this. Reminds me of when we had Tucker V Meister on here, and he's like, "Look, like what's my claim to fame is my OXO good grips." I'm just gonna be honest. I was just trying to make a potato peeler.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't trying to win awards and have something like be fantastic and stuff. You do your job and you strive to do your best, and stuff sticks and comes back around, and you get credit for it. And so I think it's fun that this kind of panned out like that. Well, I do want to give folks an opportunity, Michael. We've got just a little bit of time left. We want to open up the lines, let them talk with you directly. Couple housekeeping items that I want to hit on before we go to the Q&A. One being our Student Spotlight Award program. We'd love for you guys to check out our Student Spotlight program at thevariable.design/spotlight. This program enables students to make one presentation on our live broadcast, and mentors, which we're in need of right now, are able to give them feedback. If you go on to that URL, I'll show it again, thevariable.design/spotlight. There are forms you can fill out on there for students to nominate themselves, faculty members to nominate exemplary students, and mentors to be added to the invite list. It just puts you on the invite. If you're able to attend and give feedback, then you're welcome to join. Second item of business, our sponsored giveaways that we have during our commercial breaks, unfortunately, have yet to pay for themselves to ship. So we would appreciate if you guys have an opportunity and you're able to check out the link that we put inside the chat or on YouTube. It's on the description below. Make a contribution, especially if you've won one of those giveaways. It's helpful. Speaking of giveaways, what are we shipping out? We've sponsored from Beyond Design has sent us some of their buzz brushes. So when you guys are sitting at your keyboard and you get those Cheetos inside of your little pad here and you need to clean it out, this buzz brush was designed and developed by them, sold at Bed Bath & Beyond for a limited time, and is now, I think, since it's no longer on the shelf. So these are limited edition. You can get those, and it also comes a little pad to scrub your LCD screen. Super cool. In addition to our giveaway pack, we'll also be sending you the game designed by yours truly called This Game Is Nuts. This was funded fully on Kickstarter. If you guys like smashing hands, bruising egos, and losing sleep, you're going to have fun playing This Game Is Nuts. So if you guys are able to make a contribution, that is super helpful. The other thing that you can do that is absolutely free, that helps us out, is just to hit subscribe and invite your friends to participate in the show. The larger our following grows, the more people we have participate, the better our giveaways get, and we're able to support our the program. So without further ado, we're going to get right after this commercial break. We're going to open up the lines for Q&A and allow you guys to talk directly with Michael DiTullo. Stick around.
My name is Scott Henderson. I'm an industrial designer. I've been doing this for 25 years at least. Almost everything that I've ever done has been in the consumer products space, which means that it's a product that anyone can go out and buy. What I try to go for as an industrial designer is to design for the aspirations of people. If you look at the body of my work, you kind of see descriptors like warm and friendly, fun and lightness. Looking for a way to connect the product to them emotionally so that there's more there than a utilitarian solution. There's something there for them to see, to understand, and to get. And when they get it, when they get what I was trying to do, it puts a smile on their face. So in addition to this stuff being in Target or Walmart, I've had many, many products sold in the Museum of Modern Art's design shop. I think that my work transcends mass consumer products. And people can look at something that I've designed and they'll sort of stare at it and not really realize why they like it, what's coming out of there that's speaking to them. But there is something there, and I put it there, you know? That's why I think a design can live in different places, because good design has the same effect on people universally. Designers definitely need to be proactive in terms of spreading awareness of what design is and how it benefits humans and people. So that's why I want to be part of this, just to explain my little niche in product design and how I feel like I'm benefiting the greater human race by doing it.
All right, everybody, thanks for sticking around. We have a good question that was submitted during the commercial break. I've just asked you to unmute yourself. Pranav, where are you calling in from?
Hey, I'm from India.
Oh, thanks for joining us.
Hey, DiTullo. So I have a question for you. So in your entire career, like in the companies that you worked in, what's the secret behind, adapting so quickly to the brand and designing products for them?
That is a great question, Pranav. I think, if I didn't become an industrial designer, I might have gone into advertising. I think I just always have loved brands and brand stories. So I tend to, whether I'm working with a client or I'm working at a corporate level and in-house, I tend to really kind of geek out on whatever that brand is and really try to delve into its history and understand, okay, like, let's say Bit, right, makes this pen. And sure, maybe we're trying to solve the problem of like making the next pen in the line, making it better, making it grip better, write better, sell better, whatever the problem may be. But leveling up from that, what is Bit, right? As a company, why do they exist? Why are they important? What are the company's kind of hopes and dreams? Who founded it? Why? And so for me, I think that curiosity has always led to me adapting really quickly, right? Whether I was working with different clients early in my career or when I went in-house to Nike and then went to Jordan and then Converse and then going to Prague and then eventually at Sound United running design for 6 different brands. I think that's really been helpful. It also has kind of like, it's helped me to become a leader much earlier. I became a director at age 30 within Nike. So I think because of that, I ended up leveling up a little bit quicker and working across, not just footwear, but working on accessories and branding and even like helping to write briefs that would end up going to ad agencies, which then again just kind of all becomes circular, right? So now I'm getting that connection at a higher level, and that's now informing my industrial design. So it's improving the industrial design because I'm thinking about it a little bit differently, and helping me to create differentiation and hopefully if I'm working for BIC, not just make another pen, but make a writing implement that people will truly enjoy and will kind of communicate about that brand. So I think just that curiosity and being a student of whatever company I'm working for. I remember a few years ago, I was working on a design language system for CCM hockey. And the first page in the draft of it was a synopsis of CCM's history. And there's all these really cool, it's a 100+ year old brand, all these really cool stories in the history. And I just boiled it down into 3 paragraphs. And I remember presenting it to the CEO, and he was like, "Is this true?" I was like, "Yeah, it's your history, man." And so, uh, he's the CEO, right? But I think he said, "Where did you get this from?" I just, Wikipedia, like all these different, skate history books, histories of ice skating books. Like, you could just find it's all out there,
Yeah.
and just compiling it into like a 3 paragraph, like this is who you are, has so much more value than just designing the next skate for them, which by the way is also awesome. But helping them understand who they are is also really fun.
Awesome. We appreciate that. We have time for one more question. We've got Eric, who actually appreciate you joining. Eric, he's going to be one of our first featured student spotlights, and on May 20th he's joined in, and he had a question that he'd love to share with you, ask you on here. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, so first of all, I'm a big hockey player, so it's awesome to hear that you worked with CCM on something. I might have to contact you to see exactly what you did. But in terms of like the soft skills you mentioned before, what do you think are like the most important kind of interpersonal characteristics that a designer needs to be successful?
Good question. I think it's a really fine line between being very collaborative, right? But also being really willing to tell the tough truths. And for me, my services are not inexpensive, so I cannot afford to do anything but tell my clients the truth, because that's what they're paying for. And if a client asks me, what the temperature is outside, and it's 10 degrees below freezing and sleeting, I'm not going to say it's 72 and sunny. That's just, one, unethical, and two, that's not the value I bring. Now, it's not an easy conversation, and so how do you have that? How do you have that kind of that stance where, like, hey, I'm going to come in and tell you some things that maybe are very uncomfortable, but I'm going to do it in a way that's very friendly, that's very collaborative, that's very open, not arrogant, and with the intention that I'm going to check to see if is my observation correct, and then we're going to fix it. And so I haven't always gotten it right. I get it wrong a lot of times. It's a really tough balance. But to me, that's the magic.
Cool. Great advice. Hey, there's a few more people who've sent questions in. Michael, it's up to you. Do you have time for a few more, or do you want to, or we have to be cognizant? Let's do a couple more. All right, fantastic. Well, one that was sent in to us on the YouTube line, Marcus, don't know where you're coming in from, Marcus. If you get a sec, tell us where you're at. But he asked the question, do you think it makes sense for me, an engineer and experienced project manager, to get a degree in industrial design? What benefits could I then offer to a company? So having those both in his pocket, like in his tool belt, what would you say?
I can't really answer that for you. It's I don't know how many years you've been out of school. It might be, financially, is it possible? One, two, will it be financially viable post, right? You're going to now go back to school, spend a bunch of money and time, and so have probably increased debt, and will you get paid more or less after that? So, and maybe that's all worth it, right? Like, if you're like, if this is what you really want to do, then yes, you should do it. I'd also say, are there other ways that you can solve for that don't involve going back to school? And it's probably worth trying those first. So, as an engineer, can you get a job, working at a design firm as an engineer, or working at a startup, right, where the lines are a little bit more blurred and you're working more collaboratively with designers. And I would say, like, I guess let's test your hypothesis that you want to be an industrial designer as much as you possibly can before you decide to dump 60, 80, however, $1,000 into grad school, right? So that would be my advice. But only you can know if it is something you should do. If you don't do it, will you be picking yourself your entire life?
Then do it. Yeah, that's good. We have the final one that we're going to unmute. This is Andreas. Let us know, where are you calling in from?
Hi, I'm calling from Germany.
From where?
My question is, have you ever been asked to do a product which you didn't like to do, which wasn't ethically something you want to do, or something else like that?
Ooh.
Has there been anything like that?
Yeah, first, Andreas, it's nice to speak with you after, we exchange comments on Twitter all the time. So it's nice to see you and to speak with you. Yes, I think probably many of us have had those situations, and early in your career, you might not have a choice, right? You might have to put dinner on the table. But as I've progressed in my career, I've said no to those things more and more and more. And when I was creative director at a large design firm, I was asked to pitch on a competitor to the Swiffer, and I was like, I'm not pitching on it. And the GM was like, you have to pitch on it. I'm like, I don't have to do anything. And I was like, I don't believe in. I'm not going to charge a company millions of dollars to pay for our services so that we could put a piece of paper on the end of a stick when a mop works great. Why are we just creating garbage? And that's not why I busted my behind for 20 years to make this company a few $1 million while we destroy the earth. And I didn't, and then it wasn't an easy conversation, but it needed to be had. And then in my own practice, similarly, I was asked to pitch on this. It was I can't go into much about it. It was a Botox related product, and a huge project. Like, it would have been the biggest project that my firm's ever done, because it involved branding, packaging, service design, and industrial design. So it was a massive program. And, I know Botox can be a treatment for migraines. I was, speaking with the founder, and I was just trying to understand. And he was like, look, all I want to do is basically take advantage of the fact that women are insecure about their looks and make a lot of money from it. And I was like, great, thanks for letting me know. Conversation's over, and I'm not going to pitch on the project. And he's like, you're not even going to bid on it? I'm like, no, I can't. And I afterwards, I talked to my partner about it, and I was like, did I do the right thing by walking away from all that money? And she was like, yeah, I'm not going to have our brand associated with that. So if you have the means, and hope, I think it's your, for me, I feel like it's my duty to only attach myself to things that I believe in. I've shipped hundreds of products, maybe thousands over my career. So to me, it's like, it's got to be the right stuff at this point.
Yeah, that's great advice. Well, Michael DiTullo, everyone, thank you so much for joining us on The Variable. You've given us some fantastic advice. We eagerly look forward to seeing how your career continues to progress, and as you make waves in the industry. I think you definitely embody the slogan that we've put on the channel, being "We are the variable," meaning that we are the ones who can make a difference in the community and give back. We appreciate you and everything that you guys that you do. So stay tuned, everybody. Till next time. Thanks again, Michael, for joining us on The Variable.
Thanks for having me.